Can you hear me? Do you hear me? Somebody raise their hand if they can hear me. That's working. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Let me see. Can you hear me? I can't hear anybody. Oh, okay. You can hear me, but I can't. Okay, wait. Harriet, say. Oh,
You just came
oh,
on the air for me.
okay,
I
okay.
couldn't I
Yep.
couldn't hear you before. I don't know if everybody else can hear you. Maybe they
Might
can
have been,
wave.
yeah, it might have been something the recording might have started. Or what time is it? Oh, yeah, it might have been something to do with that. I don't know. I never know what headset I'm wearing. Right. I
Well,
have two.
I don't have much to say, but I just wanted to tell you.
I don't have much to say either. I don't have much to say today either. I just posted something. I'm hoping the people who are, you know, into San Francisco. What a mess I've got. I just hope some of the people who are actively San Franciscoing is, has some things that may be going on, or I don't know. But we can go down the. I kind of promised I'd do this, so I didn't prepare much. I guess I don't really need to prepare. I know the um the major ideas behind him, but we'll let everybody get here. And then the major places. Let's see. I had to boost your volume. I can hear. Let me see. Uh, I'll leave that on there. Then I'll boost the output thing. So it should be a. I don't know exactly when he's turning it on. If it's time to go right at 5 o'clock, but it's going to be turned off. It turns itself off, the recording part of this, at 10 o'clock. So we have, I guess, 5 hours max. But then after that, if people want to talk and stuff like that, that's fine. I'm just give me your best stuff early so it's on the recording, and if it's good enough, then it can be posted tomorrow on YouTube or later tonight. I think George told me he had to go to bed early tonight and ask if he could just set it on a timer, which is fine. We I don't need, 4 or 5 hours is well plenty. Enrichment. Oh, so we'll give it a few minutes and stuff before some people, if anybody has any thoughts, you could jump up, and I got to get organized here. It's like I do this every week. It becomes like I've never done it the week before, and I have to learn all the buttons. Hey, Scott. Hey, Ash. Off the grid. I don't know if I remember, but hello. And George might be just listening or just to turn it on, or I don't know if he's there, but if you guys have any pictures or something that might come up that you want to bring up when we go down, like, I think we'll kind of go down the verse list or the verse lines and then relate it to the painting. And I'm sure we'll get into the painting, different things, but try to keep it the topic, whole June, and then work off the lines of verse 7. Try to keep it somewhat on the tracks. Here, I'll move you back. Harriet, you don't need. I have no idea what's going on really today. Oh my goodness. Hang on. Second. I'm gonna mute myself. Oh, it's actually 5. So for those who I don't know who does, I know Will was doing something with, San Francisco and had a whole big thing, and then I don't know if, Will, you changed your mind on whatever we're going, but that's okay. I mean, that happens. And then, well, wait a minute, because catch, yeah, that's what happens. Yep. Okay, so anyways, anybody have something to say about San Francisco before we kind of go over some things? The compadres here don't seem to want to come, and I don't. Sure, what's going on tonight as far as the rest of the world and whether it's a good Sunday night for people, or it's nice. I take that back. It was nice outside here, and then it's been raining. So. But just a few of us, there was the guidelines that we stuck on, and just something I'll probably have to go over. And Jay, I was hoping Jay would be here because he sums it up. But basically, we said be respectful of others. Don't state your opinion as facts. If it is, or don't say it's a fact. If it's just your opinion, don't think about what you're saying as far as, I don't want to even get into it, but the idea of something JJP said. If you remember something in a video that he said, don't, please have enough humility or something that if somebody says, I don't think it was quite like that, you can at least go back. Don't say everything that you think JJP said or thought, or BP said or thought, or even George said or thought one time. Anybody. We got to keep that down to a minimum and a little more self-discipline. It's a long thing. It's just something that had been coming up on all the different pages. It's always been a problem and always seems to be, hard to control. But that's one of the things that George, I know, has been real, trying to stop people from continually saying things that are wrong. Now, with that said, be polite, understanding, friendly, considerate of others. I said spirited debates will not be allowed unless there's a please and thank you. Of course, when somebody gives wants to show something about San Francisco or suggests that the stone wall is this or that, certainly a question asking why they think it is fair. Getting mad because somebody asked you why you decided it was that is not fair. Just not everybody's going to know exactly what you mean or not mean. But don't say that so-and-so said it was that unless you have something that you can show. You can show it was in a clip or some paper. So let's, always keep that in mind, even on the regular pages. That's just something that's come up. So tonight, And as usual in these chats, no one's going to be convinced or swayed by anything that is said. If the word solve comes out, or any of those bad words in The Secret that every once in a while come up that people get all triggered at and upset about, don't worry about it. It's not worth getting upset about. It's just a word, and probably it won't come up. But the idea is, even on the pages, we all are guilty of saying certain words or saying it the wrong way or making it sound like we mean, that it is absolute. And we know, hopefully everybody knows, almost everything is just our opinions and based on other opinions. So maybe we all have to take a breath before we, jump on them, so. Okay, I'm just reading something. I have to read the comments. Okay. So anyways, the idea is, this chat kind of thing started off with people just talking about their things. It doesn't matter. I say, hi, Rob. I'm hoping, I guess I have a philosophy or an hoping that people can express what they want to express. When we get newer people and maybe more people jump on here, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants, again, the Stonewall at Stonewall's door. We could get 20 different stone walls. We don't have to challenge them to defend. You can ask why. You can see what the context is of it. But for the most part, I guess I'm always hoping that people can just go, oh, okay. They don't have to agree. You don't have to agree. You don't have to disagree. You don't even have to tell them you agree or disagree. Can we just hear them out and just move on? People have all sorts of things. I mean, my 6 years, something like that, many things. And I'm guilty of all of everything I've said, guilty over the years. So I'm not preaching from some kind of thing. I'm just maybe the new Discord or the new Facebook or the new Secret could be a little more not critical of each other, but critical of each of us when we are presenting something as somewhat fact, or remembering it is only our opinion and our solution, that nobody has to accept it and nobody has to run with it. They certainly have the right to ask more questions. But I'd also say, because this has been a sore subject, but I'd also say that if somebody says they do not wish to, debate or talk about it, or they're just presenting it and they're not, we got to respect that too. Some people don't want conflict. We don't need the conflict. It may not be fair that you don't get to ask them more questions, but fair isn't part of this. If they give you an impression that they don't want to continue with the conversation, we all have fallen guilty. They're probably pushing at people a little too hard. Maybe just let them be. If they don't want to talk about it, move on to the next thing. Goonie, I see you're here. Hi, Goonie. I do want you to jump up there and you can help me. You know a lot about the San Francisco, different things and stuff like that. So I do want to lean on you. And I do want you guys to throw some stuff out there. And if you want to jump up right now and say something about where, just in general, your feelings about the San Francisco verse 7, Pearl painting, June, if you have anything that you want to just start us off with, that would be great. I think we kind of accept all those, or we are accepting those tonight as a non-alternative and getting off into the stratosphere. But this isn't about me and my San Francisco thing. We know George and Matt and that podcast group had the Fairmont, and we know a lot about that because there are podcasts. So anybody who hasn't seen all the podcasts, certainly can review those. But those are not the only spot. The Fairmont is not the only spot. There's places that we had a guy a couple weeks ago. I forgot his name, Pete, I think, but he's near the Fairmont, but he's not at the Fairmont. Then we have people in the we have Golden Gate Park, which is interesting because I've heard all the Golden Gate Park and everybody seems to still be going there. I don't know for those who might be following the Golden Gate Park kind of idea. Clue us in when we hit some of these as to the real what makes it Golden Gate Park when we go down the list. And that would, I don't think we need to judge them. We don't need to weigh them. We could just kind of thrash them out and see which one I like best. No, not really. I'm kidding on that. So anybody got anything they want to just generally say about San Francisco? Like I know Goni he's a San Francisco hunter and he's been doing it, I think, quite a long while. I don't know the exact years. If you want to say anything there, buddy. Yeah. Oh, if you haven't done it, you got to there's a button down there about putting your hand up and then I can move you up to the thing. Or let's see, I can give you an invite to speak. There you go. If you want to jump up and speak. I don't remember, Rob, where you're. Oh, there he is. Hi, Goonie.
Hey guys, I'm just seeing, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect.
And the
Yeah,
rest of them are
Looks like
quiet.
it's a new format or something.
Well, yeah. Oh, you haven't been on this. We stuck on the stage thing. And what happens is when you want to ask a question, you can ask a question, but we can move people down so that we don't get the over talking sometimes. And sometimes we get we've had 15 to 18 people, so we can move them back and forth. So yeah, this is the format. So how long have you been doing San Francisco or The Secret?
Just give me a second here. I'm trying to
All right.
get set up.
I do know that a couple people, I saw something on Facebook, somebody's got an end of the month, they have a dig paid for in San Francisco. And Alan last week was saying that he was sending his money in, so he didn't know if he'd get one. But there's still people out there digging. You know that. I can't do all the talking tonight. I know that. Rob, you can join in. I can move you up if you want to. I forget if Rob, tell me later, or at least jump up one time and say if you're what part of San Francisco? Anyways. Oh, well, I guess. No one is going to speak? Is that what the plan is? We have to try to make it a conversation. Okay. Somebody clue me in.
Okay, I was just trying to
Okay.
set up my headphones so the whole house doesn't have to hear conversations.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I get it.
But for some reason, it's not working.
Oh, I have that
Anyway.
problem all the time here. Yeah.
Anyway, so what,
So just remind me, like, how long you've been doing this? I know it's kind of, a long time, right?
yeah, yeah, I've been actually, so let's see. I'll say that I was brought into this hunt through I'll call myself first gen uh Expedition Unknown, I guess.
Okay, that's fine.
About 2018.
Okay, that's a common year for a few
Yeah,
of us people, right?
yeah, and I basically cut my teeth into this on Q4T. Um, I spent a lot of time on there before it started to become you know, an issue, and people just really couldn't continue conversations, and then, the whole
Right.
the whole thing kind of crumbled.
And so then you got, is it San Francisco? Okay, well, stick with San Francisco. I don't want to get on other ones, but so you mostly do San Francisco? I think you're
Yeah, I mean,
local.
that's basically what I'm closest to. But I've worked on the other puzzles, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
more involved in San Francisco because it's in my backyard, which is
right,
nice because, a lot of people don't have that accessibility, to the city that they want to work on. At least for me, you know, I'm able to get into the city and born and raised there. So um, obviously, it's the one I work the most on. But um, I work I've worked on all 12, um, the front of the book mostly. I don't really pay attention to the back of the book. Um, I've just found that, you know there's a lot of things that could be, coincidental, but it just doesn't seem like it plays a part in actually solving the puzzles.
right. What about again? And you see your boots on the ground because it's a local. w- How does that help you, or how? What do you think's the advantage to the subtle advantage of being able to go out there and walk around?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Even nowadays, this far after the fact, what
boots on the ground is for sure. That's, having that perspective, standing in those spots.
even
Um,
40 years later, right?
Well,
It's still
yeah, I mean, still, it gives you a sense of depth. It gives you a sense of, where you stand. I mean, a lot of things changed. You could say cosmetically, like surface things, but you can see within an area kind of, how large something is, how small something is. Um, but I really think that, people that are able to go to these cities and walk their theories, um, gain so much insight on that because they can see what's around them or can't see. So, for instance, somebody says, "Oh, hey, I'm in, this part of the city," and I think Twain's attention is, the riverboat steamboat, but you can't see it from the spot. So I think being boots on the ground gives you such a better perspective than trying to do it online.
right. I know that I've always said that, and that's exactly kind of
You
how I
know,
feel. Even 40 years after the fact, with old
yeah.
pictures, you can get an idea, and then being there, you do get a, I don't know if it's a perspective or you get some kind of feel. So how did you? Let me see. How should we start this? We're all good with San Francisco. We can connect San Francisco from the painting and the with the verse, right? We in general we narrow down using the painting, and then at some point figured out the verse. goes with this one and we agree to it all? Is that kind of what did you have any kind of, did you just take the commonly accepted 6 years ago or so, 6, 7 years ago?
Yeah. So when I came into this, I read a lot of what was said before, and just try to logically piece it together. A lot of the information was already there. The work was already done. So if it made sense, um, then I kind of went with it. But the more you run into the puzzles, the more you work it, the more things make sense. And so, um, for me, the verse resonated with that image, or how I used my own kind of bias to that. Meaning, I looked into the other verses, I worked it to see which one fit best, and there was one thing for me that it kept pointing back to, and that was Twain. So, and then reading everything on the forum, it kind of made sense. So I kind of agreed, and then I stuck with it. And then over the years, to me, it just makes the most sense.
Okay,
So
so
I
really,
so I
yeah,
agree.
no, so for people listening, and again, we always say newer people, but just in general, uh, it sounds like you did very similar to me, probably similar to many, many people. It wasn't that you accepted the verse being correct, or just willy-nilly, you just came along and said, okay, they say it's that. You did look
Correct.
at other, yeah, you did look at the other verses, or at least you asked yourself, if it's verse 7, why is it verse 7? And pros and cons, and you yourself came to the conclusion that verse 7 seems to be the best verse.
Right, right. That's
Right. And
that's kind of how
right,
that's
I
kind of
think,
how I work the puzzle.
right. I think, well, we get into that old debate, and those who don't always believe it's verse 7 for this painting uh, ask that question, why? And each person can come up with their own reason why, but you've explained it kind of how many people do. They look at it, they don't just accept that it's right, even though maybe there's a lot of evidence why it is right, but they still go over it and then decide for themselves, which is a good exact way to do all of them. You don't,
Right. Well, you
right.
kind of
So
have to you have to
go
do
ahead.
your own research, your own work, um, because you fall into that trap, right? Everybody thinks it's this, and you just kind of go with that, and then you find out that, oh, maybe that's not, the right way, or something just doesn't seem right. So you kind of have to do your due diligence and come up with, what you think. And that's kind of how I approached it at first. But like you
Right.
said, I think a lot of people do that. I think
I think
that's kind of the logical way to do it.
generally that, yes. Any of the others have anything to say? Like, did they do it a different way? Did they just accept it and then go with it? You guys ask some questions. I don't know what you got to ask some questions, guys. You got to fill in these hours. All right. So once you got verse 7 and you got the painting, now did you look at the painting first and try to narrow it down, like understand how it's San Francisco? Or what was your game plan?
So again, looking at what everybody had posted on the forums, um, the one thing that I kind of started, or I after reading, I went to the book and I started to dissect the book, and like, why would why would this image be associated with this city, and so on. And so to me, um, we're given a lot of information in the front of the book, and so uh, reading that information in the front of the book kind of helped me solidify kind of my approach to, um, verifying what people had already had stated, right? Like image one was San Francisco. Okay, well, why? Well, because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. Can you confirm that? Yes. Like obviously one of the key things in that image what is the latitude and longitude, right? And so knowing that they're just numbers and like, is it correct? Is it not correct? For me, when I read the front of the book gives you kind of hints, directional hints, cardinal directions. And so latitude and longitude kind of makes a very logical kind of clue to identify a city, right? And so once I started taking a look at that, I'm like, okay, this works. The image itself has a lot of reference to the city, into California. So that just made sense to me. And, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel here, but it all kind of lined up. So that's kind of what I stuck with and went with. And the more I looked into it, the more it made sense to me that this was the proper city with, the proper image. So I don't know if that makes sense
No,
or.
that's good. Would you say if you didn't know the city, if we didn't know the city that way, would you say the front of the book, the part that talks about Cathay, and we know it's the Chinese puzzle because of the pearl, did the idea of them coming, I guess they'd go east in that case, but from China to here, does that not kind of certainly make you think San Francisco one of the real possibilities at that point for
Right. Well,
right?
at least to the west, right? Because the front of the book really shows you the movement, and the west comes up a few times, um, and so it made sense that you know um, compiled with some other clues like the gold, um, really resonates, with California and more in particularly San Francisco, especially with the you know Asian theme to the image. Uh, the gold rush was paramount to California and the success of San Francisco. So it kind of made sense to me.
Right, right. So then you took the verse, and we could see you could. If you want, let other people. If you have any questions, anybody, I am doing something in the other room. I have to run back and forth at times, but I will get to your questions if you want to ask just some ideas or throw out some same opinion. Like, how did you come up with San Francisco, or why are you convinced San Francisco, or what clues did you find in the verses? I know we were talking about that the other night and such. So, make sure you have something.
Well,
Go ahead.
like I said, when I was going through the verses, you know, the image was a lot easier, obviously, to connect, right, to the city. At least I thought. Um, and so now you're looking for that pairing. Well, there's got to be something I think common with the verse that is in common with the city. And so for me, and this is debatable, whatever, but the usage of the word giant twice, giants, and Twain really kind of pushed it to, for me, um, to the west, and more importantly to San Francisco. So for me, the key indicators in the verse would have been the use of the word giants twice and twain. So that kind of put me in that realm of this verse should go or is paired with this image.
Okay. Anybody? What? So what? And we won't. We're going to start the verse in a minute. But does anybody else like? How do you? Oh my God! Now I'm getting a phone call. How do you tie in the verse to the painting? Like anybody else? Oh my God! Be right back. Goonie, talk about anything you want for a second. Hey, doing
Yeah, tying the verse to the painting, or if the painting had anything with the verse, I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything in the verse that really stands out in the painting that you can say, aha, that's such a solid connection. But
Okay, so you don't have anything. You don't believe there. I don't want to say believe, but there's no real direct. Oh, here comes a question. Thank you, Scott. Oh, I was just trying to nudge around it. Does anybody? Okay, come on, buddy. Come on, there. That should work. If there's any verse painting connections that strongly we feel strong about.
Hey, Steve. You got me? Can you guys hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a potential painting verse connection would just be the first line at Stonewall's door. You look at the painting, there's a big, nice stone wall there behind the image, and there's a door right in the middle of it. So that could just be a quick guide to saying this painting goes with this verse. Yeah. And then another would be the the female form. She's got her little dress on, and it's got a big dragon on the front of it. We know that Cathay has a dragon that they brought across, so there could be that.
Okay, I see. I was looking at the comments and I see some off the grid said not far away is not far away, Lincoln Way. All right, we'll get back to that.
Yeah. And then obviously Cathay is an English term that they gave to the Chinese region or the Asian region back in the 1800s or whatever. So yes, you have an English named Asian place. So the English basically took over San Francisco, from the Spanish or from whoever was out there at the time, and then obviously the Chinese came into it. So in some aspects you have potentially two immigration groups formalizing a city location, kind of like some of the other areas do. Boston has its two groups, and Cleveland has its two groups. So it's kind of on that same line of of process. So that's just how I would tie, and initially tie the verses in the painting, or that verse and that painting together. Any questions?
Nobody has questions, it seems. But I like the idea. Okay, so if the first line of the verse is at Stonewall's door. Now, I don't know if we are to read it at Stonewall's door, the air smells sweet, like two lines at a time. So anybody have, at Stonewall's door, he points out that in the mountain, it looks like a stone, a stone wall's door, but it more like a window. So I've always forth in my own head. The air smells sweet is the second line. So do they go together? We know there is one theory that they do, or is there anybody got any other? Would you?
Yeah, I mean, I would look at, at is kind of saying it's a place. So you're at something at Stonewall's door. So you're kind of either looking for something that is a stone wall or something that is associated with stone walls because it's possessive. So, some people go, street name, or, some people go a physical object. So that's kind of where, unfortunately, that divergent of path or solve goes awry, because according to which one you pick, that could determine where you actually start within the city.
So let's just say Stonewall's door. We know the Fairmont has a stone wall door, a door in the stone wall, and air smells sweet could be that. Now, we know where that leads right now. So that's one that seems really good. Is anybody else, how do they go use that and end up somewhere else in the city? Is there another, I know Ghirardelli Square, Ghirardelli is a stone and it has, stone walls, brick walls, and the air might smell sweet around the chocolate factory. Is that the only other one that we would?
I think some people look at it, it could be in the negative, air smells sweet as being sickly sweet, like bad sweet, or if you're thinking monetarily, sweet as, you got a lot of money, but, this area doesn't have a lot of money. The Chinese in, the 1849s were used basically. So, it could be that.
Generally speaking, we usually find that it's an object or some place that
Yes.
it's not too metaphorically, thing. But if we take the Japanese hints also, line 2 says sweet. That's the key word that they break them out. So sweet. And it says generally means sweet as in taste, but you shouldn't be concentrating on the taste. For example, the air can be sweet without being tasty sweet. It can smell sweet or feel sweet. Think about how it can be sweet. I mean, we're talking about the air.
It's a very circular Japanese clue. It's like I'm saying it's sweet, but it's not sweet, but it is sweet. So it can become difficult to to understand what they're saying. So yeah, if you just take it by the words that it is, you're standing at the door, Stonewall's door, and you're either smelling something sweet or you're seeing something that you think is sweet. So yeah, Ghirardelli or the Fairmont clue could be either location to start at.
Right. It says very clearly, think about how the air could be sweet. So what does that mean? So be a candy, but air can be sweet, the sweets or something like that. So are you eliminating everything but actual, sweet shops?
So you could be at a flower garden, flowers, or could be smelling sweet. So I know some people are in the park, Golden Gate Park, and there's a lot of flower areas that it could have started there. Finding a stone wall or something associated with stone walls in there. I'm not sure. That's not a starting place that I looked at. So if someone has something in Golden Gate and they want to mention it, now would be a good time.
Yeah, there would be a good time. Okay.
But yeah, I can agree that that either one of those two spots.
Yeah, Daniel says flower garden, air smells sweet. Yep, flowers. That's the thing. Oh.
Yeah, so I kind of had a thought on, and this is what kind of played into the word sweet, right, and the metaphor and everything. I always thought that sweet is typically, at least maybe in my view, I don't know, you could, could work against it, but it's typically, for me, it would indicate something that's a luxury item, right? Flowers, candy. It's something, maybe it's not super expensive, but it's something out of the norm. So a candy shop,
Mhm.
uh, a floral, you know,
Right.
shop or flowers or something. But to me, that kind of speaks to the point of it's an item or it's a smell of something that, you know, is it's a luxury item.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. Let me get Rob. Rob wants to say
I
something.
just, hey guys and girls,
Hey.
I just wanted to add a little wrinkle. Sorry, I wasn't able to talk earlier, so I was kind of listening, but just a little wrinkle to consider with the, I don't know, pathways or maybe some of the ways the other three work or we know them to kind of work. I never feel confident when I hear Fairmont theories in the sense that the Stonewall's door is such an obscure, like lesser known, small kind of, well, I wouldn't even call it a landmark. Like the other ones in the other verses, there's somewhat substantial landmarks that you're supposed to find that the first couple of lines give you, like a starting point or, like uh, the shadow of the gray giant or the jewels, the place where jewels abound. You know, those kind of speak to like streets or iconic things. Stonewall's door as a candy shop, to me, if that is the thing, it almost seems like you would find that place via the image first to then realize that you were at Stonewall's door. You know what I mean? Like you'd have to find the Fairmont and then look around the Fairmont and realize, okay, there's Stonewall. So it doesn't jibe with me in that sense. And I kind of think maybe we should look at this as where else in San Francisco, what else is more iconic as a stone wall to consider as a starting point. So
No, I
food for thought.
get what you're saying, but I can see it both ways. If the Fairmont is true, well, it is true. The F and the looks like the Fairmont, and it could be, you know, and like you
As a
said,
starting
you,
as a
but
as a starting point, I'm talking about this the first couple of lines of the verse and how
yeah,
they seem to be more iconic, more larger type landmarks that are more obvious.
just okay. Let me finish what it's saying. You were saying you would find it if we're narrowing it down in the painting, and the F becomes a Fairmont. So you bing, bing, bing to that part of the city where the F is, and
Right.
then
Like maybe the trolley stops, the table's been said that there's the Leafs are like trolley stops and so many trolley stops and the turntable is the tabletop and on top of the tabletop is the Fairmont and you figure that out. Let's say that the image gets you to the Fairmont. That's when you would realize that there's a Stonewall store there.
right, and
Yeah.
that's in general. That's kind of how it works, or it would work for me. Though now I want to say you're right. That stone wall and that candy place above it, with air blowing out the vent, isn't quite as big a M&B to me, or the where the road. Maybe it's not that
Like
the on the same level.
Ghirardelli would
But,
be the biggest, place
so
that
now,
smells sweet.
right, okay. So are you saying that? Let's go down to Ghirardelli. You think that's
No,
the
I'm just no, I'm just suggesting that they seem like minor clues to me around the Fairmont, like the candy shop and the Stonewall store and the air smells sweet. They seem like minor clues compared to some of the other ones, like MNB is set in stone to Congress. It's calling out the street Congress. Uh, um, the shadow of the gray giant. I just have to look up some of the other ones. There's
just
Chicago and You know,
Yeah, I
Boston,
what
for
you're
example. Boston is Thucydides and north of Xenophon. I mean, those are pretty specific, major, on the nose type clues to get you to a place that's a little bit more iconic than a candy shop, a candy store in a hotel. Anyway, that's just what I'm suggesting to maybe take a different tact to figuring this out.
Yeah, I mean, have you thought about like the progression of these verses and the images? And I say that because each pairing seems to have a brother or sister. And what I mean by that is like some of these puzzles have the same mechanisms, um, and some don't. So I'm thinking like, will some of these puzzles have a more direct, like you said, M and B set in stone, where that's more iconic, and some puzzles will be pretty generic. It'll get you in an area, and then, like you said, Steve, okay, you stumble onto the stone wall, and then you find the air smells sweet. So it's not as direct, but it kind of puts you in that area. Because I kind of feel that when you look at the first image, and then you look at the second image, right? And I'll try to make the analogy here.
So what do you mean
That
second image?
when you look at
the Charleston image?
the Charleston image. So when you look at the first image and the second image, they both share something that's pretty proficient in the way that they give it to us. And it's the latitude and longitude. And that is in the hair of the woman, and it's in the hair of the lion, right? So it's pretty consistent that it shares that same type of mechanism giving us information. And so I guess my question would be, could the verses work the same way? Meaning some are going to be kind of generic and others are going to be more direct. And so
Yeah, I'm not saying they have to work exactly the same. I'm just saying from the evidence that we have, it just seems logical. That's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. I totally get it. And you're right. It's pretty hard to pull that, and say, oh, here it is, without, something major. But I guess maybe something major would be the Fairmont. Maybe that mechanism and how that clue works is a little different.
I'm not defending the Fairmont solution and all the things, but the Fairmont is iconic enough to call the building iconic. And if you get the F for the Fairmont with a cable car going, maybe the silhouetted cable car. I mean, if you went up there and you stood there and you saw the F, you would look around the Fairmont, and then you would see that stone wall door, and you would smell the sweet air of the candy shop. So it fits what we're saying. Now, I would just say, does anybody have any strong thing of somewhere else where you're starting? The Ghirardelli Square or down by Ghirardelli, being there's a GH that's backwards and on and on, but there would be a sweet smell there. But also, how about Golden Gate Park or some other part of the city that, they do have the Rose Garden in Golden Gate Park and all that kind of stuff. So is there some other some other stone walls door, the air smells sweet? Anybody have any that really said,
Well, I started the puzzle in Golden Gate Park, and then I moved on from Golden Gate to Ghirardelli, because obviously you have the big G&H. The air does smell sweet there, and if you look at the front of the building, it's encased in granite. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense for that. But as you move on in the verse and in the image, it just kind of falls apart. So, but I spent a lot of time right there at Ghirardelli in Aquatic Park, just because of that fact. But I moved away from there years ago, just because, like I said, it fell apart at some point. And so I know if it falls apart, then you're probably not on the right side.
1 second. Well, yeah, it's good, but I want to know. Okay, so kind of have two ideas. We don't. Is there a third? Another stone wall with some flowers that would, anybody like again? So let's say those are our two best picks for tonight, right now, just based on the first two lines. Now, not far away, high posts are 3. Now, again, I'm reading it as 2 lines. It could be not far away, high posts are 3, education and justice for all to see. So, again, we'll start the Fairmont solution idea was that right just down from the Stonewall's door, you do have what the flagpoles, I don't know if I'd call them posts, but there were 3. And then education and justice does play up with that Stanford Court. Is that the best? Is that the only thing in the city?
No, I mean, it's close to Chinatown. There's the St. Mary's Church that's there. The St. Mary as a relation to the image and the Da Vinci painting. There's a lot of there's a great cluster of clues around the Fairmont.
So it's
But
a good hit. I'm just saying, if we were at
Yeah.
Stonewall's Door, Fairmont, that would be in line of sight or our view, and we might say that. Now, if we go down to Ghirardelli and we think we start with that, where did you go from there, Goody? Like, I know the Fisherman Wharf sign down by the thing is technically, I think it has 3 like telephone poles or 3 posts. I mean,
Here's
that's piers. So that's but so is that what you used, or was there something else that maybe?
Are you asking me? Or are you asking Goonie?
Anybody that will
Oh.
talk? Yeah, anybody. Go.
Okay. Go. I don't have a good
Robbie.
theory for San Francisco. I have like 3 different somewhat good theories. So I'm not an expert on San Francisco, but I'm up for a debate, talking. I mean,
Yeah, no, we're not really looking for anybody's great theory, but like where if somebody was to pick Ghirardelli Square or whatever with the Stonewall smell suite, what is the next lines? What
wasn't there a like a stone archway on the pier that may have been like Stonewall's door?
Yeah. So
Where the steam what do you call it, the steamer was? The paddle boat?
well, that's down on the
At Fisherman's
high
Wharf.
pier. So yeah, at Fisherman's
Okay.
Wharf. It's before Fisherman's Wharf, or at least the steamboat is. But the main, so when you look at that line of the verse, high posts are 3. There's really something that's super prominent in Fisherman's Wharf, and that's the Fisherman Wharf sign, and it's got 3, wooden, or I don't know if it's wooden now, but 3 wooden posts that hold up the sign. And so,
Yeah.
if you're in that area, that makes a plausible, sense.
Now, wasn't there a one point down? I guess near a ship. Wasn't there a ship with 3 masts or something?
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
famous?
There's 2 ships there, but I believe one of them was not, or maybe both were not there at the time they were moved. Like I want to say they weren't there in 1981 because they were having some reconstruction work done on them, so they were moved. But yeah, a lot of people theorize that.
Yeah, well, that kind of, if somebody was thinking those ships, but the
Right.
evidence not being there, I think we could, maybe you don't want to cross it off the whole list, but it might be put over to the side.
Well, I think a lot of people, theorize that, or I guess it's your definition of what a post is, because technically those are called masts, not posts. I mean, if you're looking at a boat, so or maybe just the use of the word post was to hide the word. I don't know, but
But
to me, I think he would have used a different word if he was going to describe a ship's, mast.
fair enough.
But,
Fair.
but again,
So the wharf sign, it's got 3 big posts, literally telephone poles or big metal ones now, probably posts. And
Right.
it's in proximity of Ghirardelli Square or Ghirardelli Factory, smells sweet. So it's somewhat near there, right? It's reasonable distance that you could say could be the next clue that you'd have to.
yeah, it's a couple blocks away.
If I
But
was
then-
weighing this couple blocks, might start make my my doubting come into play. But we'll just say that's good enough for right now.
Yeah, it's within the area. I mean, it's not far.
Okay. And now Golden Gate Park. Okay, let me just say. So, is there anything else about High Post? Well, okay, not far away, High Post 3. So, if at Ghirardelli we go to the Fisherman's Wharf for the 3 posts, what would be education and justice for all to see? I mean, we know the Fairmont one is the Stanford Court. That kind of not bad, really
Right.
rock solid. So what would be something down there or anywhere else? Any San Francisco people?
So
Is there-
if you're in that area, like
Yeah.
this is one of like a couple of my theories I had early on, and one of them was that in that same kind of area, you have 2 streets. You have Jefferson and Embarcadero. And I thought at the time, maybe he was just referencing the capitalization of the E and J, which Jefferson and Embarcadero would have kind of played into that. But this to me is where it kind of starts to fall apart.
Okay. So yeah, that's a little stretchier. Now, my question is, when
Because
do
in
we?
that area, there really isn't anything that you can definitively say, I can connect education and I connect justice in that area. There really, it's just, it's a tourist area. There's a lot of shops, there's a lot of stores. There really isn't any, I don't know, there's no schools, there's no like, I don't know, it's a really tough fit.
Now, I'm not exactly a path person. I always call myself the treasure hunter person, that kind of finding these things and they kind of go to, you kind of move. Some people have suggested Alcatraz for justice and I don't know, even Angel Island for education. Is that it within anybody's, idea of what a clue might be that they use 2 islands or just visually out there? If you were down by the wharf, does that seem to fit with the
Yeah.
other pubs? Getting a lot of Texas.
That was also another theory to come into play. But, I guess those aren't very local clues. They're more broad clues, further away. But it could make sense. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Or did I lose my?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, something
Yeah,
glitched on.
I got another education justice for all to see, thought of it a couple days ago. You know, back in the day, we all used to have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. So the last lines of the Pledge of Allegiance, what? With liberty and justice for all. Right. So education, you're at a school, you have to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and for all to see would be maybe there's a picture of that somewhere. So if you do some digging, you'll find that there is a picture that kind of fits this puzzle. And it's a photo of children at Raphael Wheel Elementary School in World War II during the internment of the Japanese. Now that school is on the corner of Geary and Buchanan, right next to Japantown Peace Plaza, and it's within the area of the Fairmont. So, there's a possibility that could be the education and justice.
Okay.
For all
Okay.
of it.
Okay, so if we jump back over to the Fairmont being we're up there, we get high posts of 3. Are we agreeing on the flagpoles as posts? I think I skipped over that. Flagpoles, 3 of them as the posts are 3? Is
Yeah,
that?
I would think logically, and comparing those two clues, that would be your option there, right? Because it kind of ties in that
Right.
location. It gives you a secondary clue to say, oh yeah, okay, this could be correct.
So if we use Scott's justice thing, what would high post 3 would be? Like, how do you get those 2 lines with
The high
education?
post 3 would be the flagpoles that you mentioned earlier, because you stand up and you say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So flagpoles, then that it's not directly. I mean, it's not exactly right by the Fairmont. I just
That's
look
right.
at it as a potential clue. So whether you use it or not, it's just something that I added to my potential list, because that's probably one hard line to figure out.
This isn't about making up our own.
Yeah,
patenting
exactly.
anything.
So
I'm not using
yeah.
anything. What's the reasonable, yeah, again, I know this is like a puzzle and it has puzzle pieces and treasure hunt. There's that boots on the ground at some point. If we haven't talked about narrowing down, but somehow you get to the Fairmont, or you started the Ghirardelli using the GH. Things are going to come to you at some point. You're going to, think. So if you use those 3 flagpoles on Stanford Court, that seems like that matches those lines perfectly, well enough in the way we would expect. Now, I can't use those 3 poles and then use education to justice that's 2 blocks away. It seems like that's jumping away from either kind of a progression. I don't want to call it a path, but progression in the treasure hunt kind of thing, right? It seems kind of it's a different direction kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. And another education and justice would be the Chinese Education Center. And let me look at the street that it was on. It is on,
Well,
it's on Clay and Powell, or Washington. It's in that square, Clay, Powell, and Washington. So it's just north of Chinatown,
just north.
or to the northeast side of Chinatown.
But that still again is pretty far from where if you started at
Well,
the Fairmont.
yeah, it is, but that's the problem with path clues is finding one that's right next to it is going to be hard with that amount of time. And maybe the Fairmont is a starting point, kind of like the water tower was in China, or I mean in Chicago, or the
Somebody
the
else can
Boston.
jump.
Yeah.
Somebody else, please, who's listening, if you want to bring up kind of your idea of how the verse works, or we're just kind of going down the line. And if it's like Chicago, the verse lines, you would find something down, kind of puts pieces together. We haven't mentioned that maybe there's something in the painting in between some of these lines that help you also get down, I say path, but to me, there's always some kind of clue, something, I call it physical, whatever. But so if High Poster 3, Education and Justice, we can kind of down at Fisherman's Wharf get the High Post 3, we could live with that. The Education and Justice gets a little trickier and maybe not quite as solid, right? But now we got, that was for all to see. So then Sounds from the Sky. And then, see this out. Sounds from the Sky near Aces High. Either one clue or one together clue, 2 lines, or it's 2 separate things. And we know the Fairmont solution, and that's what I'm calling it, people. It whatever they called it, whatever. I'm just calling it that because it's the only way I can refer to it. They had the KSFO signs, letters on the side of the building. Again, we're right there on the friggin' Fairmont building. So that's a pretty good thing if you take the Japanese clue. And I did put the Japanese hints all in the chat thingy thing. And what was it? Let's see here. And what is it referring to? There are a lot of sounds that heard from the sky. For instance, sounds of birds, sounds of planes, sounds of the wind. There are also sounds not registered by human ears and cannot be heard without special machines. So that narrows down. It kind of narrows down. I can try to get imaginative, but you are seemingly talking about some kind of radio waves or type of machine like that, something that's producing high frequency that no one really hears, or you need a machine to hear it. Let's say that, right?
Yeah, and I think how close the other clue would be, right? Education and Justice. I mean, literally right across the street. I mean, that really gives you a good pairing. Like you don't have to search for it; it's right there in front of your face. So, and it makes sense in the terms that if you were going to take a look at it the way the Japanese hints, describe it, you're definitely looking for something mechanical that produces sound that you can't hear. Well, use your logic, find what makes best sense, and if you're looking across the street, that makes best sense.
And this is my opinion, but I don't believe BP was trying to go for things that are so bizarrely hard to find, some historical record of somebody made a little machine. I mean, it's a radio, like it was things around there. It was then 1981 or 82 when he wrote the verse. So it'd be the things that were, there. So that's a pretty solid clue. I really am hating that I agree with all of this with that Fairmont solution, but that we haven't finished with that one. But now, what if down at Fisherman's Wharf? Say we're kind of working from Fisherman's Wharf. What's down there that would be? Certainly, there's radio towers or radio. You would need.
I think in Ghirardelli, the building. One of those towers was a radio station. So again, you have, a pretty solid connection to radio.
Sure, that kind of equals out. There probably was a radio station down there, and there are probably numerous ones throughout the city. Now, we had forgotten to mention, High Post 3, and then you get into the Sounds from the Sky. Sutro Towers. I mean, that's way far away, but could that be some kind of visual thing that might help? Or I would almost say no, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, Sutro Towers is, I mean, again, that's if you're in Golden Gate Park, but again, San Francisco, especially in that area, it gets packed in with a lot of fog. So is it a visual clue? Is it a metaphor or what? Because on
The only
certain days you can't see, you cannot see that, right? You'd have to see it on a clear day at a certain
you-
vantage point.
Right. But and the only thing I've ever thought about the Sutro Towers being, even in Golden Gate Park, anywhere you could see them, right? On a clear day, you can see forever. But yeah, on a clear day, you can see them.
Yeah.
So if it to me, if that meant Sutro Towers, it would only mean like a direction. Like it means you got to go. You look at them, and wherever you're at, you're going to go towards the tower, or right, because it's just so far away that it's like putting a clue in there for Mount McKinley or something that you could see.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a right there as the thing. I don't know. Anybody else have anything about Sutro Towers? And I'm not real familiar. Well, I know one of the clues that's coming up, that Golden Gate Park, that seems to draw people in. But anyways, that was the only thing I remember about that. And then we get near Aces High, and then we're starting to. But anyways, the near Aces High. If we're at the Fairmont, we know, and they found out that the Ace Company ran the garage on the side of the building where you would turn, and I think that's Powell Street. I think it's Powell. It's down Powell. But anyways, which one? Oh, so there's Ace Company. Now, the controversy is they haven't really never found a sign that was above, so saying Aces High. But to me, I could rule out having to find the sign, and maybe saying from, cause we're just at letters from on the side of the building, and the Stanford Court. So you could argue the fact that just because it's called Ace, and Ace is high in a poker, we think aces are high. It could be play on words that way, that it isn't really a sign that we're looking for above them or above where they thought. But even the name of it could be. But is there anything else? There's a lot of things that Ace might conjure up.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the ambiguity of these clues is, like you said, it could be a pilot, it could be this, it could be that. But I think if you see the word, that kind of really hones you in. And other than the Fairmont, you're not going to find that, other than you're going to have to make a connection to a fighter pilot or blackjack or 11. So to me, it starts to get a little askew once you start moving away from, something that's actually printed with those three letters.
So we turn the corner, and we're by the Ace Garage area. That's good. Stop there for there. Now, if you go to down by Ghirardelli, and we're doing that, it is possible there's an Ace Garage down there, an Ace Parking.
Yes. Actually, so in San Francisco at the time, Ace Parking was pretty prevalent. It was one of the major garages. And in fact, in Pier 39, right across the street from the major Pier 39, was a huge structure, and it was Ace Parking. So Ace Parking had like a really big presence in the city, and very visibility in really tourist areas. So there was an Ace parking lot right across Pier 39.
So it just seemed to me that, okay, it does, the proximity of Ace running the garage at the Fairmont, that, I see it. I see that. I can almost accept that there's no sign on the wall, that it's just the word Ace, and, you know, they would have had a blue sign probably sitting at the ticket booth or whatever you do when you go in. So, but there are Ace parking elsewhere. So now, do people and please, you guys, anybody else, you know, if you want to ask a question, jump in. Me and Cooney are talking, and you guys just jump in and throw in whatever you want. But is Ace, those who want Golden Gate Park or somehow get to Golden Gate Park, or, you know, are they using, what are they using for Aces High to get them to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen people use Pershing, General Pershing, as Ace High lately, or
Okay.
not lately, but that's always been a theory within Golden Gate Park, right? Because I think his nickname was Blackjack or something like that. So a lot of people,
Okay.
a lot of people use that connection. But then again, you know, you're moving away from, you know, a physical clue to a more of a, you know, connected way you have to use that phrase, right? It's not like you said, so Ace, and you see the word Ace, that would be a more one-to-one. But when you start to look into like the statue of Pershing and then his nickname, then you're kind of stretching it out a little bit more. But again, you know,
What is it other than some saying the shape of her dress, you know, and the arms crossing makes it Golden Gate Park? What is it that, which line of the verse that we've come down to about the middle of the verse now is what makes them go to Golden Gate Park? Even in the
yeah,
painting too. What
I-
draws them to Golden
everybody
Gate?
in the painting says it's the outline of her dress, right? And to me, I mean, it's similar, but I don't
Yeah.
think that it's a good representation, because there's a couple key things in the park that the dress is missing, or at least it's pretty prominent that doesn't show on the dress that would signify, hey, this definitely could be Golden Gate Park. It's that bump out. When you look at Golden Gate Park on any map, it's the bump out where Kezar is. It's kind of like a 45-degree bump out and then a box.
Yeah.
It's pretty prominent on any map that you look at within, you know, anywhere from 1981 to now. The dress doesn't have that. Now, some argue, they say they see it on the bottom, but it's not as prominent and as recognizable as it would be on a map. So to me, it's a little bit of a stretch to say that that's like, people say, well, it could be a city identifier. I think cable car is more of a city identifier than the rectangle in her dress, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's all opinion, and it's all what we see. But I really think that the bump out where Kezar Stadium is a pretty telling indicator of the park and the shape, and the dress just doesn't represent that.
Or so ago, there was
And I'll say back when I was looking at Golden Gate Park as a possibility, it is associated along the Great Highway. So there's a GH, link, obviously it was rectangular. It does have that crazy shape, but I mean, we don't know, what the concept, of the design was, I was this was one of the paintings that was the painting that was reused, was it not?
Yeah.
So
This one was
maybe he had already drawn it. Now I don't know. So, but by saying that, it doesn't have a bump out, I don't know. Ohio was kind of an ugly shape, and certain things were, our artist, he has to hide things in a certain way. So, maybe he that was his way. And but Ace's Highway, I believe, was Highway 1 that people would look at and goes right through the park.
You're talking, that's the crossover.
Yeah, Ace's.
So, okay, now,
I'll add that the music concourse solutions, that map of Golden Gate Park can be seen as two separate maps. One is the whole park, and then the upper part of that with her collar and stuff like that match the upper part of the music concourse around the Francis Scott Key and the what's it called, the fountain, I forget what the fountain's called, with the snake wrapped around the mountain lion. So, and also the lake in the middle is where that heart-shaped aligns as well, and then the crossover would be the arms. That's how people take that solution.
And I initially started, I never finished it, but looking at the lettering that goes around her dress, the different shapes, I was trying to match those up to entrances or exits of the park and see if, I could line, any of them or multiples of them up. But again, I went away from that concept, so I never finished it. So I don't know if anyone else went that route.
Yeah, there's also the use of the stylistic bubble type blue water or beads or whatever that he used in New York. So if there's some symbolism or some kind of matching symbolism to that, that's maybe something to be figured out as well, or linked in some way.
so
There's a lot about the image that we can try and pull clues from, but I don't know. It all needs to work together.
Yes.
so in my, what I do normally is draw things and try to match it out, see what they match. It is not great match for the shape itself, like Goonie said. It just isn't. Now, I never thought about looking more carefully at the bottom half being matched to the bottom half, and maybe the top half matched to something else. Maybe there's a thing. If you just do it as one whole park and the crossover her arms, it really gets weird, because it doesn't really line up unless you flip one of them upside down and turn it. So it's not a one-to-one match. It's obviously what looks a lot like it. So like Scott was saying, we get into that abstract and maybe thing, but I know why people think it does, and that's why maybe they are in Golden Gate Park. So let me jump down the next line, which is tied right into this: the running north, but first across.
Yeah, how does that work with the Fairmont theory? I never heard a good answer for what does that running north mean? First across.
The cable car line that comes up to California. Let's see, Powell comes up, and California goes. Let me take north and south, east and west, right? East and west. That makes perfect sense. East and west, and then Powell crosses over, still heading north, and then down the hill, and eventually, here comes Sarah. Got a question here or something. So that's Sarah.
But what does that have to do with our dig spot?
Second.
And what is first across? What does that mean?
1 second, Sarah.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to reply to Rob and be like, here's the thing. Grant Street is right there, and Grant is the man who ran the north. So that's the way I see it.
Oh, running the north. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Where is Grant Street?
Right next to St. Mary's Square and the Chinatown, everything. It's
okay,
like right
down by the St. Mary's Square. Yeah. Oh, I thought we
Yeah.
were looking at the Fairmont dig site. Like
Yeah, I
on the
don't.
side of the building where they're talking about Aces High. You know, it's directing you around the corner.
Yeah,
So.
I don't subscribe to that, but Grant Street is right across from. It's right
Right.
beside, like it intersects St. Mary's Square, and
Maybe
Great-
that's not Lincoln. Maybe it's Grant. Maybe it's not JFK or Lincoln. Maybe it's Grant.
well, no, I'm still good with it being Lincoln and
How is Lincoln in that area? Is there something close by?
St. Mary's Square at the
I-
cathedral across
What
the
does that have to
street.
do with
Yes,
Lincoln? What does that have to do with Lincoln, though?
he was married Todd Lincoln,
Oh,
right?
Mary Todd. Oh, that's stretching,
Well,
in my opinion.
Well,
Doesn't go ahead.
couldn't you think Lincoln? I mean, okay, so it's really it all depends on how you interpret it, right? Because it's been called Lincoln, Reagan, Kennedy, but the one thing all those three have in common is they're presidents. So could it just be a clue to presidential, something presidential? If you're looking at that
Oh, yeah, correct. You mean like
from a standpoint, and so
So what's
sure.
presidential in that vicinity?
the Fairmont. I mean, the Fairmont housed or houses
Mhm.
a lot of political events, and I think
I
it
think that's
held
kind of stretchy.
one of the major conventions at it.
It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be perfect. Rob. We're just kind of.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
it
I'm not saying
does.
that's it. I'm just saying, you know,
We can get 1,000 stretchy clues. The ones that we want are the most logical, and the ones that everyone can kind of say yes.
Okay.
You know.
Well,
Yeah, what's the name of that? What's the name of that big building with the big pyramid on top?
Transamerica.
Transamerica.
Yeah.
okay. Hang on one second. Let me pull this back to figuring out where we were.
It's
We
okay.
were
I'm
on
hanging
Powell.
up for a second.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Two.
We
two
were
things-
on running north first across is where we were.
So California runs east and west.
California Street, correct?
Yeah, where the cable car goes east and west. Isn't Lincoln Park down at the end of one, but it's a little farther than that. And I don't care about that. Didn't JJP tell him that it was Lincoln? Wasn't there a famous story about shouting it's Lincoln on the phone? Anybody remember that? If not, then forget it.
I kind of remember the story, but I don't know what the outcome was and what the.
Yeah,
Well, the outcome was,
I don't
think
recall.
somebody, maybe it was John Michael again, who somehow said something like Kennedy or them, and the whole family yelled Lincoln or something like that. So, but we won't on that story unless we had the actual somebody. So we were talking about the California runs east and west. Powell runs north.
Powell runs north and south.
North south. So as it comes up, the corner right there at the Fairmont is where passes over California. So that's where the Fairmont solution said first north. What is it? Running north, first
Running
across.
north, but first across.
So they're using that corner, that first across, meaning that cable car line is the first thing that runs across it. I am not of that thought. That's what Paramount one says.
That's a low value clue, in my opinion. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Well, I think just the use of the word north is pretty direct, and it's a directional clue, right? And
Exactly.
pretty agree on that. So wherever
But
you're at,
but you have to combine that with first across though. And it seems like it's leading us in a direction to continue. Those are the clues we proceeded on seeing and finding, and now it's leading us north, but we have to cross something. So if we're at the Fairmont and we're crossing something, we're crossing over Powell, in my mind, but we're doing it as we're walking north.
Yeah, I
So it's
cross
kind of like
over
northeast,
Powell, I think,
northeast
when
of the
I
Fairmont.
walk south.
I think there's a key word to that, and I think the key word is running. And I think that key word running really applies to the cable car.
Yep.
And so what direction is that cable car going on Powell Street, north or south? So somewhere, yeah, like you said, somewhere you have to cross. But is that just the intersection of California and Powell as you head north?
I would, if we took these lines and we're going around the side, we go around the Fairmont, we're going down, and right at Powell, we're going to turn where the Ace is High, right? So we're at that point where it says running
Wait,
north of
what's your Aces High? I missed that part.
the Ace
Parking
parking
garage.
lot. The Ace
Up there.
Oh, okay, the parking garage. Okay.
Okay, so we are past where the cable car crossed over California. So to me, we are past that. So when we get to this point, it's still talking about the cable car heading north. Down as you go down farther, eventually it does go east-west. It does that little jog. And that's just a quirky thing of those cable cars. There's a couple. So I rule out that it's talking about the corner of Powell and California. I think it's talking about something further in front of us yet to go too. If that makes sense.
It makes sense because I go down California and wind up at St. Mary's.
Okay. So you have to, so you're turning on California. Okay.
No, I start and end on California Street with Grant Avenue in the mix before you come to St. Mary's.
Okay. So everybody good with that? Like visualize
think-
it in their head.
The only thing is, I think that it has to match up with something that has to do with Twain,
Okay.
because that's
It's the-
proceeding.
Hang on a minute. We haven't got there yet.
No, I know we haven't gotten there. I'm just saying, in terms of value of the clue, I think the higher value is the one that has something directly to do the place we're ending up at has something to do with Twain.
The
Okay.
the Twin Mark building on the corner. Twin Mark building on the corner. That's what I'm saying.
Hang on, let me read the after running north, but first across. Here's where we're getting into.
Hang on, Steve.
Nuts and bolts. Pardon?
Steve, I got an outlier location because, obviously if it's not in that area, it could be somewhere else. So, my running north, but first across, or another version of it would be, okay, there are certain lines that run north and south, latitude lines, right? And one of them is a specific one, and it's Greenwich. In Greenwich, the Greenwich Mean Time line. All right. So at Greenwich Street, I have it first across. Who crossed the ocean first? And that would be Columbus. So Greenwich and Columbus would be a potential point on this map if you are somewhere, north of that area.
So you're disregarding the cable cars.
No, I just add that as another potential because we're not solving this. Remember, we're not solving it tonight.
No,
I'm just
we're
throwing it
not.
out there. If someone is,
Where is Columbus? Where is Columbus and Greenwich?
it's directly north. If you go, let's see, let me look at the street name. If you follow Mason Street all the way up, where it crosses Columbus
I
is
got
the
you.
angle is,
I got
is
you.
on an
Joe
So-
DiMaggio, Playground Park,
Yes, that's where it crosses.
Washington.
So
Washington
You know, it-
Square.
yeah, in that area. So, so if someone out there is working in that area and they're looking for that particular clue to fit, that could be a fit.
Okay, let me just finish. one
Yeah,
little
go ahead.
couple lines here. So we went running north, but first across, and then now here's the nuts and bolts of this last part that I think is hard part. It says, "Is an object Twain's attention?" So we get to this. This is the crux of it. Now, the Fairmont solution, they got to the parking garage area and then the planter over there, and maybe use some visuals from the painting. But to me, they never went farther than this,
Right.
except they did. I mean, I remember Matt saying you can look down Powell and see Angel
As a
Island.
visual-
That was a thing and all that.
A visual
But
a mile away.
Many miles away. But yeah, so okay, so now
But,
back to
yeah.
what Rob was saying, running north but first across in the Jules direction is an object of Twain's attention. Yes. Wherever we're at, it should say to us, Twain, somehow Twain. So
Yeah.
I
anyway,
mean, I've kind of always thought that because there's nothing, I don't know, if you're in that area and on that street, there really, unless you keep going, which now you're starting to move quite a bit. But my thought
Right.
was maybe
Which seems, contrary to all of those other micro
Right.
clues that are all in such a small vicinity. Like, why would you then trek a mile away or anything? Seems like it
Right.
should be in that direct vicinity, right?
Right. It should be whatever it is should be kind of like within your eyesight right there. And the only
Exactly.
thing that I could think of within the city in that time period would be a newspaper stand. They were all over the city, they were on corners, they were by parking lots. And so maybe just the connection to the newspaper or literature or something was that connection to Twain. I don't think there's anything that, there's a sign that's going to say, hey, Twain eats here,
Yeah.
within that area. And the only logical thing I could think of in that time frame would be a newspaper stand.
let me catch. I'm seeing some things in the chat thing. So Twain's attention, first pillar, Fireman's Monument, Tom Sawyer named after a firefighter he met in San Francisco. Okay, so in the book, wherever the Fireman's Monument is, I don't know exactly where that would be, but okay. Daniel, Twain's attention, painted ladies. Okay, that sounds like an interesting Saturday night. And then Sarah, somebody was saying something, Sarah, Twain's Mark building. What is it? Trademark building with a cafe house, which is on 655 California Street. So I guess what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, and again, those who haven't spoken up, this is a great one to, what is Twain's attention? We've heard them all. We probably all heard them. We thinking too hard. I think was playing a game of trying to do this and starting at the Ace Garage where the Fairmont solution kind of ends in my mind, and the rest of the verse there seemed to be more to it. I continued down the street where 2 blocks away is Chinatown, I guess the official borderline of Chinatown. And somebody, I forget who, it might have been Goonie, but somebody suggested that even Twain's attention could be a library because he was an author. Oh, that reminds me to go back. The Japanese clue is pretty interesting at this point just because of the way it's worded. Let me see, where is it?
Yeah, I think it says the famous, right?
Yeah, it says that one of them. Yeah, one of the translations something the famous what like author whatever, and then it says something about not splitting rope. That must be somebody else's. This is what was on 12 Treasures. Not splitting rope. It's phonetically sounded out name. So I don't know what that was, where that came from, but anyways, it seems like it's referring to Twain as the author. So we are talking about Mark Twain. We sort of are talking about him as being an author, not maybe not the newspaper guy so much as the books.
Well, either way, I mean, right?
I know.
Writing.
I know. I'm
I mean-
splitting hairs. I'm just splitting hairs there. That was.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how far you want to go, right?
Well, right. I know it gets down there that you go 2-3 blocks. You're in Chinatown. You're down by the Cable Car Museum. If I remember what my notes were, there is the big Cable Car Museum, which you could say it actually cable cars run north and then they turn, and that's where they turn across town, across a few blocks, and then they continue on north. The Cable Car Museum is down that way, and the Chinese library is a few blocks more. So,
Well,
no, okay.
just really quick before, I mean, I think we kind of jumped a line here. You have to determine what the object is.
Well, right.
And so, I mean, could we say a library is an object? I wouldn't associate an object with a library. Now, a book, yes,
Right.
but a library,
What's in a library?
yeah, a book. I'm saying a book could be an object, right? A newspaper stand could be an object.
I might not. I don't know if anybody else agrees, and this is just my opinion. And you guys, please jump in here and say. I would only say the newspaper stand it's one of those clues that kind of a temporary thing. Like, would he use that as something?
Sort
Or
of
less.
signs.
Yeah,
I mean, signs are, as long as people are using them, they're up. If they don't, then they're down.
yeah.
So, it's tough to say that a lot of these things are they super prominent, or are they things that will disappear over the years?
Well, of course, some things are going to disappear over the years. Even newspapers have disappeared. So that kind of. But aren't the clues that are generally solid in the park something? Like Chicago, they were visual things are going to be there, plus or minus. The Cleveland. I don't know about Boston, but it seems like they're permanent type. Anybody else have a idea of what I'm saying, or have a clue as to what I'm saying? But anyways, I don't know what his object is. Object of his attention.
I was just noticing that you mentioned the Cable Car Museum. The running
Yeah.
north and first across could be the line down Powell, because it does go down
Right.
and then goes across towards the
There.
museum.
That was where I kind of got to, and I couldn't decide at that point. Do you go across, across with it and follow that, and somehow it'll eventually get to where we're heading for. We need a giant pole and a giant step.
Right.
And that's the neck. I want to say that.
And we need Twain.
Well, right. Right. I mean, Twain's attention. We need Twain's attention. So if his attention is as in a author's book or a reading library or a reading, newspaper. So it is possible that a clue could be missing after 43 years. So if it is a newspaper stand, fine. We may have to jump over that at some point. We may have to just, as a famous person said one time, you just keep on going. Just go past and keep on going. So if we were to jump over that a little bit, we still got to find something that fits the giant pole, giant step. And that shouldn't be as hard as it is, if you ask me, but seems to be.
Yeah, and in that description, they're pretty generic, right? I mean, poles are 1,000 a dozen all over the city. So what separates this particular pole from the rest?
Well, when I was doing it, I was trying to, I would hit my head against the wall and see if something came to me. But obviously, the two giants, the GG, the big two giant words, pole and step, it has to seem to me to mean when you saw it, you would say, "Oh, yep, giant." Not just a pole, not just a step. It would be a significant pole and step if you're in the right spot.
Yeah, I would think that it would be pretty prominent that once you saw it, you kind of knew it. Like once in Chicago, if you got to where L sits, that's a pretty direct, aha.
Right, and even seeing the Bowman, if we say in the painting, we haven't talked much about the painting, but like, are there any visual clues that fill in some of this? Well, I've never found a giant pole or a giant step I haven't found anything in the painting that really makes me happy, but there's just the cable car, maybe the cable car that gives us the idea of the line that we kind of following down.
Couldn't the I mean, this is kind of a little bit stretchy or far, I don't know. But if you did jump on the Powell line, that would take you all the way down back to near the Fisherman's Wharf and dump you out at what is that?
Almost.
Yeah, that
Yeah, okay, that would be interesting twist to
that would be like aquatic cove would be the outlet.
Yeah, you know how sometimes verses have that circular thing, the beginning of the verse.
Well, I mean, everyone so far is like you talk Milwaukee, you talk Chicago,
right.
You're traveling certain pathway.
Well, if you were to, yeah, I mean, you could. Again, then we get back to that at Stonewall's door, the air smells sweet. Okay, maybe that is a Fairmont. The bottom part maybe takes you to Ghirardelli, where there's a Stonewall air smells sweet. So there's a kind of a double, you know what I mean? Like a roundabout way. You're using the same clue twice, but not in that order. I'm winging it on that one.
If you're a Golden Gate fan, a giant pole could be that outcropping shape of Golden Gate Park. That long, thin shape. That could be your giant pole. Obviously, it could be associated with San Francisco Giants. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. My giant pole for the music concourse, giant pole, giant step, is the Francis Scott Key Monument. The giant pole is the flag pole that she's holding at the top. And the giant step is she's actually stepping forward in her pose. So it's a giant pole, a flag pole, and a giant step. And that in that map that I was talking about of that particular part of the music concourse, the Pearl sits exactly where that monument would be in relation to that part of the park.
What was your Twain's attention?
There was like some two what are they called? Sphinx?
Sphinx.
Two statues. It wasn't a good solution. I'm just saying that was
it jumped there.
Yeah.
So
there's jumps everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
what do you think about how the word step is used? And what I mean is, like, in Cleveland, right? He uses the word hop. Could this be
Right.
kind of in the same mechanism that it's an actual physical movement?
Yeah.
Then, you know, something that, you know, we have to see that it's replicating. Because when you look at the verse seems to be about movement, right? I mean, we're given not far, we're given near, we're given running, step. So it seems to me it's implying that it's an actual actionable thing that you should do. But again, that all plays into where you're at in the puzzle and or
Yeah, for sure. I like that idea a lot. I mean, a lot of the other ones, you know, they're giving this directive to take steps and your own body movement to move to a place for sure. Definitely.
right,
Do,
right.
do we or anyone say anything about the two big G's? You know, GG, as in
Golden Gate.
he put. I was thinking gift giver, but no. Yes, Golden Gate. Is that? Does it seem like he used the GG for a reason?
I could be just Twain is twin giants.
I just wondered if anything, you know, it's kind of unusual or kind of interesting that it, you know.
What's the zodiac sign for June? Is it a is it
I think there's
Leo? No.
two of them, right? It's
Yeah.
Cancer, right? And then what's the twins?
So twin Gemini. It's Gemini.
Gemini.
Oh, Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe there's something to do with that. It's twins. Giant.
Yeah, I've always so I had this, you know, again, this is one of those things that aren't permanent but are all over the city. I always thought that it could be a possibility that, you know, the polls, a lot of polls in the city that they put up the, you know, upcoming baseball season, they put the Giants flags on them. I always thought, well, maybe one of these polls had a giant banner on it, you know, for the ball team, and that kind of gave you your giant and a poll in one, kind of wrapped up nicely. But again, those aren't year round; they only pop up during baseball season.
Hey, Jay, don't be afraid. Jay, do you want to say something about Hun and Poe? You can explain better how that might. I noticed you wrote Hun and Poe again. Did you want to say? Come on, buddy. Hun and Poe, yin and yang. Well, James' theory, you know, has a thing that on 12 Treasures it said JJP was inspired by Hun and Poe, which is like yin and yang, but you know, has that whole arrows shooting the sun or moon or something of that nature. So do you think there's a he posted his whole thing, and that if you guys read that, you get the idea of how he's, you know, light and dark, but I forget all the things, but there was a color shifting thing which has something, let me see, I can't see it.
Well, I think to that dialogue is that, you know, you have the yin and yang symbol, and so
Right.
if you kind of look at that and you look at the painting and you understand what that is, you definitely see it's being represented in the painting, right? Because you see dark, the painting's dark, and then you have the gold, which is light. Her face is lit up against the background, so you have all these opposites going on within the image. So there is something there. I just don't know how like deep it goes.
Yeah.
So let's-
And the GH is backwards. So, you know, you would think maybe you have to flip the painting. And that might be your Hun and Poe or your yin and yang. You know, you look at it one way, you flip it, look at it another way through a mirror. Might be something in there for that.
This first pillar, but giant pole, Coit Tower, giant step, Transamerica building, pyramid type, step pyramid. the only thing I'd say about that is, yeah, it would be good if it was something. I mean, if that was the case, they're far apart, and at the bottom of the verse, maybe something like Chicago. When you're at the spot, they're right there prominently in your field of vision, and you kind of go, aha. We're in a spot that the Transamerica building and Coit Tower, maybe Fairmont too, maybe they all triangulate. I haven't used that word all day, so let's use triangulate.
Now, do you think the Coit Tower's in the painting? Beside
Some
her
do.
head.
Some
Okay.
do. Okay. Jay's on, and he's probably going to talk about it. Jay. Oh, here goes.
Oh, I was going to let him finish his Coit Tower stuff.
Well, I was just wondering if who thought that it might be in the painting, between the weird blue shape in her head,
I don't know about blue shape in her head.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you, Jay? Did you have something you were going to say? We can come.
Oh, I was just saying, if it is based on Hun and Po, which is the soul part of yin and yang, and you see that balance, especially with one that has to do with Gemini, June twins. Not that it's the only star sign, but it's one of them. People argue how many blocks she's pointing to. Well, you can make an argument she's pointing to 4 blocks on either side because it's balanced, yin and yang. And I feel like you see a lot of parallels with the giant step, giant pole, two similar but opposite kind of a thing. It just seems like it parallels a lot between the painting and verse.
Yeah. Okay, now let's jump. Okay, was kind of brought up. Let's just talk about the painting in general, and then maybe if something relates to some of those verse lines, we can kind of go back and forth. But I mean, obviously, the painting is interesting in a lot of different ways. First of all, I think the Fairmont solution, or George one time said, I thought he was joking at first, but I think it's what he said was like Knob Hill, Knobbies. Those are knobby. They're kind of knobby. But then some see Coit Towers. But anybody else, what, like, your impressions of the painting, what would jump out at you that you want,
To me, it seems like it's setting the scene from what we heard about in the front of the book, where it talks about his golden mother, Hai Swing Mu, however you say it, who lives she's the great mother of the West, I think it is, and she lives in the Kunlun Mountains, which I think is where the Hun part of the soul goes to do whatever it does before going to heaven, or whatever they believe.
Yeah. Now, what about the moons? Hun and Po had something about suns being shot, but it's always fun to talk about why is there 11 moons?
I don't know that Hun and Po had to do with moons, but the tale of Prince Yi, who shot down 9 blazing suns, is also mentioned in the front of the book. But we don't have 9 moons. There's 11 moons.
Right. And 11 moons.
They could be planets too. I mean, we don't know if they're moons. We know the round-shaped objects that we believe are moons.
Well, the litany tells us the pearl is, chaste like the moon. So kind of implies that they're moons.
Yeah.
And the story about Prince Yi, his wife, becomes the moon. So he's the sun, she's the moon. That it's I think the original origin, like where yin and yang come from.
I'll take your word for it.
There's also in the front of the book where it talks about, I think, like you just said, he shoots down 9 blazing suns, right? And so when you look at the image, if you look at the clock, it's a golden clock, and
in the front of the book, it does mention that the fair folk like gold. It reminds them of sunlight. And when you look at the clock, we have 4 numbers, right? 12, 3, 6, and 9. Well, the 9 could represent 9 suns. The clock could represent the suns. You look at the hands, it looks like there's an arrow, a bow and arrow pointing to the 6. But again, that could play into the story, the beginning of the book.
Okay, yeah, but the old thing of 11 moons, is it possible that 11, well, for one, could be the same as ace? Could it be a line, ace is high, referred to the moons? So maybe a verse line and a painting. I think Bradley, I always like to bring up Bradley, people. If you don't know Bradley, long ago, you'll see him on the podcast. But I think Bradley had the thought, maybe he didn't, but I'm saying he did, something about the 11 other paintings or the other 11 other puzzles, kind of a representative of that. Yeah. Okay, first Bradley. So,
Yeah.
we know JJ put things in there that maybe weren't directly for the treasure hunt. I mean, he added his own artistic, things, right?
Right. I think the question you would have to ask is that what was intentional or what was there before? Because that's the hard part about this painting, right? Because it was repurposed.
Yeah.
So we don't know if those were there and they just said, hey, just go with it. And then we're all looking for, meaning behind those. And there might not be.
I spent some time and I think I cracked down on pretty well understanding that JJP had that curved frame in his studio. Via George said that. He had already had that thing. Okay. Somewhere along the line, JJP and Byron looked at the painting that JJP had done, which we know as the Soul of Clouds or Cloud of Souls, whatever that is. And somehow they decided they were going to repurpose it. Well, they ended up having to add, or he added the top section, like I don't know if it's 2 foot, but you can see the seam because it got bumped or damaged. And so you can see where they added the top section to an original canvas board. So my opinion and the way it looks like is that the original painting that they repurposed was, the normal size painting, let's say, and they added the top to fit into the frame. So I would almost guarantee that I am saying, I'll put my opinion on this, that the woman, whether it was her head and face or her arms or that down to the gown, the woman was Oriental looking, and that was what part of the painting they kept. And then he blackened out. If you look, you can kind of see the blackened out around her and added some of the blue. Now, whether her whole dress, the dragon with all the squares was completely done for the other painting, it looks more like, I would guess more like maybe the dragon was, or at least a lot of her, at least her face, her eyes. The eyes are the thing that has always been the thing, and her hands. Most of that was done. And then, obviously the gold part, it looks like it's been added and touched, made prettier and prettier. But the woman's face seems, and I think we get into it was a discussion about her eyes. If it was from the original painting, the eyes were already blue on blue, which is unusual to be blue on blue. Would be weird that he would add the blue to the tint of the eyes after, if they weren't blue already. Seems like that just stayed there. So I think the moons were added because they needed to add the top part to fill that curved frame. And then it's just the top of the mountains. And then he added something for the moons. And again, the idea of 11 puzzles plus that one, that makes sense. Ace is high, maybe, even Byron, if you believe he said, I need 11, ace, 11, something like that. So there is some I can show. I have these drawings and I have the close-up pictures where you can kind of see. And my guess would be the lady, whether the whole top to bottom was what they kept. Certainly they didn't need to just keep an end table. He added that. And then her hair got added to, because the curliness doesn't seem like the style that would go with even a partial Asian. So the curliness got added around her head, which made it easier to hide some of the numbers. And that's my opinion.
My take on the 11 moons is you have to add those to the moon pearl, which gives you a count of 12, which is the yang to Mark Twain's yin. Because as we know, Mark Twain is measuring 2 fathoms or 12 feet. So we got a measure of 12 and 12.
Okay, Goonie had to leave, so now we're on our own. Our own as knowledge of San Francisco. Yeah, that's another one of those that when you get to 12 in there. But let me. Well, I forgot to start this off. Tiki Tom said something the other night, and so just for all of you guys who are here, just if you wondered why we started with June painting, well, I was laughing because I don't know, something came up, and since it was June, it seemed like June was a good painting to start with, but it also happens to be the first one in the book, so that's just coincidence. We didn't pick June because it was the first in the book. It just happens that all worked out, and then we get into, okay, why was the first? Is the first and the last like the the bookends kind of thing? So that's how that all became with that. So 12, obviously the book, 12 treasures, 12, 12, we have 12 treasures. It's kind of an important number to all this. So it would make some sense, 11 moons with a pearl moon, but I don't know. That's my theory is mostly I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's weird because they say they were the 13th group to come across, so it's one of those weirdo thingies.
Well, isn't that because the other two group, the one group is
Well, yeah, but I mean it says on the first day of spring or whatever at dawn, met by the 13th, something to that effect. So
yeah, but that's technically true. They'd be the 13th because the other
yes,
two of them.
they're the
But then he combined it up for the treasure thing. So that's thrown off people for, I don't know, my 7 years. People forget that it sounds like he made a mistake or there's some kind of hidden clue within. But then when you pull out the logic of kind of what it said be there, and then you go, oh, okay, that's all it probably meant that. So it sounds weird. It's just like the Scandinavians made the cask, and that was their treasure. So is there, you could get into the argument of the cask itself is a treasure, and then the jewel is a treasure of the ones that, so is there 2 treasures per? Technically, I guess you could sort of say there is 2 treasures, the cask itself and the gem that you get with the key. But let's not get into that controversy. Let's not start something. Yeah, I know. So okay. So what? So we get to the bottom, and it obviously in the jewels direction is an object of Twain's attention. Giant pole, giant step, and then to the place the cask is kept. When I read the last 2 lines, besides the obvious place, it's somewhere place, but it's kept, K-E-P-T, kept, and it kind of reminded me of almost like if there was a flagpole with a giant step or something, and there was a planter, something like Cleveland's planter, something where it's kept kept in, enclosed kind of a area like that. I mean, how would you read that?
Could just be that it's rhyming with the other word. There's rhyming in this one. Every other line.
I started looking at streets that are last name place. You have streets, you got boulevards, but in San Francisco, you got a lot of things that are named something place. So
Okay.
that was one of my rabbit holes of digging down.
Okay. So Rob, on your idea, this is going to be a little far-fetched, but is the step and the kept, they rhyme, but could they relate to each other in some way? Like, can you imagine?
I'm just saying that it could have nothing to do with that at all. It could just be that he needed a word to rhyme to continue with the poem. You got three, sea, sky, high, direction, attention, step, kept.
Right.
It's right. It's a poem,
Right.
and he needed rhyming words. So I'm just saying it could be that it is what you're saying,
Sure. There's
or
always that.
it could just be that was a word that sounded right in the cadence of the rhyme.
I agree with the rhyming. I think even in the back he says if you're unable to dig up the treasure, like you can have the jewel, but the fair folks will keep their holder or something like that. Like they're keeping.
Yeah, it's interesting too that there's also a period after kept, which is not really a lot of punctuation, but he does.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is that each line, some people don't believe it, and we don't know because we don't get to talk to him. But I mean, he wrote the lines very carefully. I don't think he willy-nilly threw things. And yeah, you're right. It could be just that he needed a rhyming word and good enough. But it's still, I get the feeling, it's in my opinion on, I don't know, but there is some care and he took time with the verse. So even though it's hard to read and we don't really catch on to a lot of it, he purposely wrote it the way he wanted to write it. So there was some thought to it. Now, was it, giant step to a place to caskets kept is just rhymes with it? Probably. I mean, I'm not saying that he did, but he did pick the word. There might be another word that rhymes with step out there, but he kept. So is that, could it matter? I don't know. Probably not.
I just checking on the punctuation, by the way. They all do end with a period. So
they do.
Next that idea.
That's interesting. It's probably, if you ask most of us, do they all end in periods? I don't know if anybody say for sure yes. So I've got, that's the first time that 12 of
I'm just
something.
looking at that. Yeah,
They do, and one actually has two periods at the end of two sentences, and that'd be New York,
right.
In line 12 and the end.
Like an extra period in the punctuation. I don't mind at all. So I don't know. So, okay. So where do you guys want to go from this? The painting has so many things that could be, they might be.
There's another discussion about the Twain that maybe we can have.
Go ahead.
About the fact that this is the only one that has two signatures for JJP. There's the JJP and then there's the John Jude Palancar. So there's two places in this image where he signed it.
Now, okay. And I thought, I could be wrong, but didn't George say that he had forgotten that he had put the little JJP on the clock? That's why it ended up signing it, that it was just something he was doing and never remembered. So again, there's a weird thing that seems like it might mean something, and yet maybe
we don't know for sure, right? Is he not remembering that was the purpose, or is he just?
I don't know. Yes, I don't know.
Who knows?
It's under number 1 of additional facts. JJP initials painted on clock as an exercise in brush control. It has no bearing on the puzzle.
Where's that from?
I think
That's
that's on 12 treasures.
yeah, it's on 12 treasures.
Those are
Yeah.
George's words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look in the chat box thing there. And scroll back up and you'll find I posted a bunch of things that might come up. Thank you there, Jay. I forgot I posted anything.
I reposted it because I didn't realize you posted it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I was sitting there beforehand thinking of when something comes up. Like even the gold and brass colors in the painting are actual gold. It is very reflective. Okay. He did use gold in Montreal and stuff. So it maybe it's not something like we can't say that this painting was the only one with real gold or something. So, but that's nice. That's nice.
But the front of the books does say a lot about they were the golden people and they had gold filigree and talks about golden honey when talking about them. And for Montreal, we know it's probably the golden square mile. So it fits in both scenarios.
Painting is very damn okay. So anyways,
There's also like it's like a triptych style. There's 3 distinct areas in the painting. There's an upper, middle, and a lower. There's divisions.
right. That might be something to do with the repurposing or composition with the repurposed object that he kept. What about the? Okay,
I'm sorry. I've also always thought that since there's this bookend idea with New York and the shape, and you've got the Verrazano Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge, that the Golden Gate Bridge kind of has those types of segments in them. But along other similar or similarities, the New York painting, if you look at it closely, the Statue of Liberty has those curls kind of curling out of the side. And if you look close on the right side, it almost looks like it's a layer over the top of her face, the Statue of Liberty. And I've always thought that maybe it's referring back to the curls from the San Francisco painting, that's the fair folk, or there's some kind of connection from those curls that are kind of hidden in the New York image. I don't know if anybody's really looked at the detail on that. But it does look like there's an overlay or like a masking of
those 3 wavy, curly shapes.
Yeah, there's curls coming out of the left side, but on the right side, if you look at the photograph of the painting, I have to get it up, but it looks like there's an overlay masking, like it's covering up the fair folks' face with an image of the Statue of Liberty. And so then the fair folk below that picture of the Statue of Liberty has curly hair. So kind of like what the curls are in the San Francisco image. So if we're drawing parallels, I'm just saying it just kind of it leads me to believe that there's some symbolism or some symmetry there. If you look at the photograph of, maybe I should take a picture and let's do that. I can post the picture. Sorry, hold on a second.
Oh, I know what I was going to. At some point, we always have to talk. First, I will bring Bergen up. I will bring up your.
I just posted that picture.
Okay, said look that. I'm going to ask him about the rose, Bergen. That's just to note the rose leaves and stuff. Where are you? Oh yeah, that part where. Which side are you talking about? The part with the.
So you can see how it looks like the Statue of Liberty's face is on a sheet of paper or some kind of overlay that's put over the top of this woman in the robe. the fair folk in the New York image. See the
Okay.
left side that's on the clock, it has a very distinct line that it looks like it's actually a sheet of something that's overlaid on top of the image.
You could
And you've got,
you could kind of say that, okay, if I
and it looks like the San Francisco's image has got the part in the middle, you know, and the straight black hair. I'm just saying, if there is symbolism and some kind of bookending shared between New York and San Francisco, that is one of the things that kind of I look at and makes me think that that's a possibility. The other is the use of the bubbles, as I said earlier. You know, you've got those very distinct circles, the three colors within them that represent something, whether that's water or who knows what. But
I mean, they're both
it's unusual.
coastal. People reckon both those hair parts, I think, with bridges.
The hair parts.
Yeah, I think one is like the Verrazano.
You're talking about the span of the Verrazano. Yeah. You're talking about her brow with the hairline. Yeah.
Yeah. I can kind of see it. I'm not sure that I fully subscribe to it, but I can kind of see it.
Yeah, it's a possibility for sure. But yeah, there's lots of similarities between the New York image and the San Francisco one.
Well, it brings out that idea that the artist, you know, somebody decided on that arched San Francisco arch frame. So did that give them the idea that just say, oh, well, then make when you do New York, do it with an arched window look. It kind of wondered if there was something back and forth and thinking, okay, that kind of a bookend or West Coast, East Coast, that kind of thing. So we need JJP to expand on a little bit of that. But I was going to ask you about, I don't know if everybody was here or the other day, but Peregrine always brings, he has brought up a couple times, and I've talked to him, it comes up. The rose on the table.
He's on. He could come on and talk about it.
He can, if he puts his hand up, and he knows he can put his hand up. But I was just going to say, the rose on the table, it's a rose, but that's not really a long stem vine. It's a vine, and the leaves on the rose aren't rose petals. They're shaped different. There's nothing like that. So it's not a one-to-one as far as the rose stem into that viney thing. Now, is that vine something that relates to something? It's a distinct vine that winds its way down, and we know the swirl has to do with the Fairmont, probably. The leaves, why they're rounded, not like a regular rose, that's fine. Maybe, I think somebody says like the 3 different turntables in the city for the cable cars. So it's a vine, the cable car cable, which just below the table is the silhouette. I mean, I don't know, but we do have the clock with the little bell on top is a cable car, or looks just like a cable car's bell. So is that whole area, what are we getting out of it? Because it seems like the rose and the Fairmont next to, with the table, next to her arm, maybe the crossover of the hands or something in there. Is that the area of the painting that what we might call the home plate or fence post, is it in that area? We haven't really talked about the giant pole, giant step, and this is where it's kept, blah, blah, blah. Like an image identifier for the verse tells us something, but it doesn't really tell us that. It seems like there's something we need in the image. Does that make sense? No.
Are you looking for a home plate reference, Steve, or are you just looking for something?
looking for something like that, maybe that
Well, there's a
clarifies.
home there could be a home plate reference if you look at
I
to the
don't, I
plate.
don't, I don't really want a home plate, but I want to.
Okay. Well, I
Well,
mean, it could just be, something saying home associated with Chinese or home associated with, the area. But that to the place could be referenced as a verse in a musical number that John Denver wrote called Country Roads, take me home to the place. So,
Okay, so. Okay.
I'm not saying it is, I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I know. So we had, we seem to go the Jules' direction, an object of Twain's attention, a giant pole, giant step, to the place the cask is kept. Now that's kind of generic as a place the cask is kept. Now, if we found a giant pole and a giant step, we would say, aha, we didn't need the painting for that. Do we need the painting? Is there something in the painting that relates to at least that bottom half that is kind of like feels at home? And then we saw a home plate with a leg, or a fence and fixture, and we see the fence fixture. Here comes Ash. Ash wants to talk. He's over there in the UK. Here he comes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I would have jumped in a lot earlier, but work got in the way. So I've been looking at a place which in 1965 had what I would consider a giant pole in it. You need a giant step to get into it. And on the painting, she's pointing at some squares on her sleeve.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
This giant pole would approximately be 4 kind of segregated sections along. It would be in line with a clear kind of 4th break, if you like. I don't have enough information to basically be really confident in it. If that pole was there, then from running north and first across, kind of everything can line up in a way. It also, to my eyes, looks a lot like the actual painting, this location. I'm just struggling to find old pictures of it.
What I don't know if you're not saying though. Is there a specific location?
No.
I mean,
Yeah, it's 941 Powell Street. So it is from where your planters are on the Fairmont. You would walk north, you would cross the road. About 2 buildings down on your left, there is an empty plot. It's been empty since the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. There's 2 things I can link it to Mark Twain, basically. I don't like either of them completely. His writing career was pretty much started and ended with San Francisco earthquakes. I mean, the 1906 one, he didn't really do any major writing after 1906, apart from his autobiography where he talks about the earthquake quite a bit. And one of the first articles he wrote for, I think it was the San Francisco Chronicle, was about the 1865 earthquake. How I can also say that that's possibly why we've got Lincoln in the painting, because Lincoln was shot in 1865. Yeah, it's just a really interesting place. I'm just struggling to get details about it. I've got people looking online for pictures who are in San Francisco who don't know anything about The Secret. I mean, I can put a couple pictures up if you like, just to explain it a bit. Yeah, so Peregrine's put a good photo up. If you was to go back in time, it actually, to me, looks so much like the rocks. Let me find a decent picture of that. So, I mean, I'm going to put one up. This is it in 1965, where you can see just on top of the tram, it didn't have the fence, which is there, and it had a massive billboard.
And what was the poll? I didn't understand. What was the poll?
So if you look at the billboard in the picture I've just posted, obviously that's going to have it's
Pole.
standing on something. It's standing on a pole.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So
I'm trying to find out if this was still there in 1981. I haven't found out that information yet.
okay. Do you check out the videos like on YouTube or even 12 Treasures? The guy who's found a whole bunch of videos. Have you watched any of them? You might luck out. I don't know how far back.
I have. I have watched them. Every time it gets close to where I want to see, it cuts away.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really frustrating.
Well, I have a theory on that.
This is
I have a theory on stuff like
this is
that.
the building off.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No, my
No,
theory
carry on. It's sending it. I don't know if this is the one. There you go.
the YMCA.
Yeah, so obviously the window at the top is pretty good match. It's got the same amount of bricks. I think the kind of beige bricks going down the side is reminiscent of her dress. But it's when you turn around and you see this rock, which looks like the rock behind the lady in the painting. I just can't concrete say this is what it was. Yeah.
I got to tell you, I looked at the picture of the YMCA. I clicked on it, and it came out big. And I looked up, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's exactly the same window." And then I realized you had pasted the painting window.
I superimposed it across this like to check.
Need to go with it.
Same with the blocks at the bottom. I kind of thought that looks like a sleeve. But yeah, when you look at the place behind it with the rock, it has these kind of pipes on this wall. And if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of lines up to where this billboard would have been placed, because it looks like it's got one post on top of the rock and then it connects to the building.
It's a tough dig
also
spot.
owned. What's that?
I said that would be a tough dig spot.
So also in the 1965 photo, the fence wasn't there. You have to look really hard, but you can see there was no fence in 1965, at least. Was there a fence there in 1980? That would have made it a giant step to get in, but you would have been able to get in.
Something different. I hadn't seen this before. I hadn't seen anything.
Yeah, this is something where I've searched every secret thing for someone to have mentioned this, because so how I work it is nothing I do leads to where it's the cast. I just try and think of where people look at and try and make it make sense to me. And this was me doing it with George's Fairmont video. And I just kind of accidentally clicked a bit further down, saw this building, was like, oh my God. Started searching it. Only one person's ever mentioned it before.
Right. Well,
so yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Right. All right. That's interesting. Interesting. But it does show me that it's like I thought, you get to the parking garage and there's more to it. There's more to the verse. So there should be more, a little bit more. Maybe not, maybe just, but.
I think you just have to cross the road.
Right. Well, that's, again, now what, I don't know why I'm stuttering, but that's where it seems like the Chicago one gave you the Beaumont, the Bowman, and whether or not you knew to cross the street at the time you looked at the painting and said, "Oh, Bowman." But in San Francisco, I haven't seen. I guess I haven't really felt like there was something where you go down the street and something visually would say, "Oh, okay, we're either right here on this corner, except that right around the Fairmont. Once you get down a little farther, I don't know if anybody's got anything, even in, and if I don't know if anybody here is really into the Golden Gate Park. I still am curious to why they pick. Everybody is picking different spots in Golden Gate Park. It seems like they beat that park to death. I know that Shakespeare area, and then the Rose Garden area, and I think Rob was saying the music area. I guess I don't know the park well enough to really. Again, that's where boots on the ground. Sometimes probably walk around there. You'd get a feel for maybe. So I'm torn on San Francisco. It seems like you get to a certain point. I'm not going to say it, but I guess I should say it. But, you know, George and those guys did the thing to the Fairmont. I'm not 100%, but they are, or seem to be. I don't know how to, again, if I could see something in the painting that really made it seem like, oh my goodness, I didn't see that, and it's like the home plate, you know, or the fence post. You say, oh, now I see it. I don't see that either, except the blocks on her sleeves, you know, and then she's pointing. It seems like they're calling out more than just crossover, you know, the crossover area. I don't know. Anybody got anything else like visually in the painting? There's still other things in the painting. All the symbols that some of them it's obvious what they are. And then there are a lot of symbols that remind me of the flags on the Boston painting that are symbols that might mean they are something else as symbols, but they don't seem to be nautical flags, or, you know what I mean? That makes sense? I just wonder. I'm at a loss at where else or what else could we do to, you know, I think, go ahead.
What are, I don't know, anyone's interpretations of the dragon on her dress? I mean, I can see an E and an O, and I saw in some instances someone says it's an IEO, you know, or could be an IEO. I mean, does anyone see any other lettering, or, you know, the way that's
So-
shaped? Yeah, go ahead.
I've totally stolen this from someone in Quest for Treasure when doing my search. They say the claws, when you mirror the image and turn it upside down, one of the claws has a P, which they put, I haven't associated it to this, they put as meaning Powell Street. That is something I saw on Quest for Treasure posted in the last month, which
Okay.
I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause if you can also kind of go further, and just below that kind of P shape, you've got the empty space, which is a bit like an O. And then you've got
Yep.
these three kind of long straight lines for a W. But that O and W bit, that is totally me just thinking like, oh, how can I fit it into my location? I'm not saying it's, you know, certain. That's just something I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I can make an H out of the first part, or the bottom part, you know, and then an O, and then maybe an N. But
Well, I
yeah,
know,
the P I could see, the C I could see. Go ahead.
I
Ted.
know. I don't know if it's on Jay's thing that he posted. I don't know if it's on there, but do you have your Ghirardelli wording, Jay, handy? Jay can spell out Ghirardelli, I believe.
Oh yeah, on the gold lettering, and
I believe he might have made up some
Yeah.
letters. I don't know, but yeah, basically some of that you can get Ghirardelli. So a lot of letters. But here's a question: that what what are we missing as far as what would say, aha? Which of the lines in the verse, obviously giant pole, giant step might be the one that we really, comes to us. And it isn't exactly a wooden pole and it's not exactly a step or something, but what are we missing? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm clear enough or even that makes sense, but it's like there's something compared to Chicago, Cleveland, Boston, the best we can say of those. What are we missing that it's not like that? And even though I will caveat that with this one might not work exactly like those. So let's not, I'm not saying it's absolutely like that, but what are we missing? It seems like is it the image we don't understand or? Nothing.
Well, I mean, you could be misassociating giant. There are giants that are part of the Fairfolk group in the front. Maybe. So maybe it's referencing another Fairfolk group that you're supposed to look for. Maybe a different country's item that's a pole, or the different country item that's a step. And I'm not 100% sure which Fairfolk groups would be associated with the giant. So
right. Well, okay, then
probably more.
So would we say we're still looking for or need to find or hope to find something in the painting that clues us into, home plate or the corner of the park or, something like that. And then I'll ask the question, I think Scott mentioned it the other night or somebody did, about like the genie's lamp, that lamp that might be in the San Francisco Bay. Is that the most obvious thing sticking out in the painting that nobody really knows for sure? Can't put there. Could that be some kind of something that when you saw it on the street or you walk down, near the pole, giant pole, and you'd say, oh, of course, could it be that kind of a painting object?
And I think so, because I mean, even in the map section, the Houston guys are the Jen, the Perry, and the Deves, and I believe the Deves were giants. So, if that shape is a lamp, maybe giant pole or giant step is something to do with,
Tying it
an
back
Arab, something Arabic.
Right. Yeah, it just seems there's a lot of things that people see in the painting.
Yes.
And you can list them out, but that one, I don't know if anybody's ever been totally convinced or totally, let's see, like Decorator's cartoon, isn't there a lamp of the building across from the back of the Fairmont? I don't know. 310. Decorating carved into the building. I don't know. I'd have to do the street view and look, but that would be a real big. If 310 put in the chat thing that isn't there a lamp on the building across from the back of the Fairmont? So somewhere on one of those buildings, like a decoration carved in the building. So that'd be interesting. Peregrine's going to type something, so he's pretty familiar with all these kind of things. But that might be an answer to why that looks like a lamp, that type of lamp. So it would be nice if it was close to maybe the dig spot.
Has anybody tried to do anything with mirrors with this particular image? Since we're given somewhat of a clue with the G and H being backwards, maybe there's a flip. Or the fact that there's kind of like this triptych design, like everything below her arms is all blacked out, like there's a horizontal line to maybe follow. Just spitballing.
Can't
I don't have
remember.
anything.
Yeah, I
Just
don't. I
curious.
can't remember doing it, but I bet I did at one time. And then thinking that if GH is reversed and you have to see it in the mirror, that there must be one other clue in there that maybe is reversed. So it doesn't think.
You know,
I'm
like
not hearing it.
maybe the
Okay.
twists and turns of the dragon. Maybe there's something revealed if we do a vertical mirroring right down the center. I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but
I haven't done that in a while. Paragon asks in the chat. He sits up at the. Oh, that's not a very good picture that I pulled up. You know the symbols on the very bottom of the robe. You know the there's about 3 on the very bottom. There is one that's I think the double D's. The D's that are backwards. That's kind of a mirrored effect. There you go. If you will, they're merged to each other.
Yeah. And I mean, Jay's, thought process kind of answers that. I mean, I haven't found anything better than that.
Letters, making them come out letters, is what you're saying.
I mean, yeah, mirrored letters, mirrored shapes.
The 2 triangles, the up and down. I thought is that like fire and water or something like that? Can be or something like that in Chinese symbols. I'd have to look on my notes, but something like that. That could be as close to fire and water opposite. But the double D's there, I don't think I ever find unless did he get creative with those? Is it like an egg that's broken open? So you got kind of shells, half shells. I don't know. And then I never figured out the cross one. That one I thought was some kind of mahjong.
just a thought too. If you do use a mirror, and if you do something vertically, you're creating a double image or like a twin image or a Gemini type image.
Yeah. I suppose you could do that. You would do that in almost anything that
Ask, where's there a mirror in the? There's a mirror of. Oh, you're just saying a mirror. You've mirrored the image. Okay, sorry. I thought you were saying there was a mirror in the image. My bad.
Well, let me see. Was that something written?
Yeah, I was in the. I just read quickly and incorrectly.
Okay. So Peregrine said they're clearly added to the original image. Seems they are there for a reason. Yeah. And he may be not just talking about the bottom 3, though he did, or what they are. But even the ones on the side, obviously the numbers up on the top that we call the lat long. I mean, J.J. Panda would put them all in. He put the yin and yang. Well, that seems obvious. A couple of the others, I don't know if we know what they are, as far as a symbol. But it seems like he put symbols on and around the dress. Did he make them up, or are they symbols meaning like Boston's, the flags? But also the ones up on the top of the dress, the 4 could be like the 4 seasons, though they don't exactly go with the 4 seasons as far as matchup. How do you know they were added? Peregrine, that was the question for you, I think. How do you know they were added? Well, it seems like the gold was added after. It seems like the line that goes around, even some of the lines that go around the dragon, it's like the outer edge, the dragon was there, and then when he made the rectangle, there might have been a rectangle, but then he had to scooch around, gave it a little design. And it seems like the bottom half is a little faster done than the top half. So when I was looking at it real closely, I felt like says, So Peregrine says, because they're slender images inscribed lightly. George is going to answer something. They're typing. Oh, it's okay to